Welcome to the second half of the second season of Dead Last, and we are going to celebrate the return of Scream by ranking the Scream movies. But there's not quite enough of them yet to do a ranking because the official rules of the show, I don't know if you guys know this, but the official rules of the show hold a franchise to having 8 entries to qualify. So we're going to mix it with a few other 90s slashers franchises to boot. So not only ranking the Screams, but we're going to throw in the I Know What You Did movies, as well as the urban legends, to give us a solid 10 movies. Now, those movies were put in front of my patrons, and this crew answered the call and sent over their rankings. And what they did was they placed them from 1 to 10, with each number 1 movie being worth 1 point, and 10 points going to the movie ranked dead last. So the least number of points wins. And of course, as always, in order to discuss these rankings, I have my panel, and I have a group that is especially passionate about 90s horror. First off, we are going to go to a guy that you have seen before. He told me a year ago that if we were ever going to do a 90s horror dead last, that I need to call him. So here he is, it is Sean. Sean is back once again. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I did. I said if you're doing 90s slasher movies, I want in.
And Sean can be found with some really cool shorts on Vimeo on Just Scare Me. And the one I just watched was pretty outstanding. Tell me about Abigail.
Oh, thanks. So Abigail was a short that I had written about 10 years ago. It means a lot to me. This is a very personal short for me. Usually I just write the short and then shoot it that month. But this one was something that I'd been wanting to make for a long time. My lead actress, Mary O'Neill, she won the Best Actress award for monthly indie shorts for the month of November. So out of all the shorts, I submitted her for Best Actress, and she wound up winning. So I feel pretty good about that.
And next up, we have one of the patrons from Patreon.com, and you have seen him on the Jam episodes. You've made a couple appearances here, but this is the first time on the full-length episode, and it is Steven. Welcome, Steven.
Hey.
It's good to have you back, and you also have basically, you also told me that when it comes to Scream, you want in.
I campaigned pretty hard. And
the final member of our panel, but certainly not the least. That's not the right way to say that. You're supposed to say the last but not least. But you've just recently seen her on the Child's Play episode, and she's back once again. It is Fatima. Welcome back, Candy Corn Bruja.
Hello. Thanks for having me again.
And very similar thing, you told me that during that episode it was mentioned that you love the 90s and 2000s horror, so I had to call you on this one.
I'm excited. Thanks for thinking of me.
As you've probably seen from me on these shows before, that 90s horror is not my jam, as the kids say. So I had a little bit rougher round for this, but there was some very, very good movies in here worth checking out. So let's take a look at one that's not very good, because we had 25 rankings here. 25 rankings, a pretty solid number, which means that the best score a movie can have is 25 points. That's everybody ranked at number 1. And for a movie to be the absolute worst dead last movie, if everyone voted it dead last, it would be 250 points. So out of a possible 250 points, our dead last this month, with 241 points, is I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. I think this was a shoo-in. It was ranked dead last 17 times, and the best score that it got was 8th place, and only one person ranked it in 8th place, which means that out of 25 people, 24 people either gave it dead last or 9th. On the panel, we had some pretty low scores all around. Steven, you had it as your dead last. Fatima and Sean, you guys both had it at 9th place, and I am the one jerk that ranked it in 8th. My 8th place is by in no means an endorsement of this film. It is a terrible movie. It is barely worth watching. I will say that one of the things that actually saves it a little bit for me, and I use the word save sparingly, is the ending, because I think that the ending goes so far out of left field, and it is so bananas that it actually made me turn around and go like, no, that's amazing. It was the only time during the entire movie that I perked up. But there was some funny charm. I did laugh a little in the beginning because some of the acting and some of the way that the scenes were staged were so amateurish and so goofy that I couldn't help but laugh a little bit at it. But it definitely lost me after about the first 10 to 15 minutes. It gained me back a little bit in the last 10 for silliness sake, but not enough to save it. But Steven, you hated this more than me because you gave it your dead last.
Hate is maybe a strong word, but it's a very boring movie. First of all, I want to congratulate Sylvain White for being a 3-time dead last winner. That must be such an honor.
That's right. He was dead last on the One Hit Wonder episode, and he was also the dead last with Slender Man.
It's a boring movie. I don't have a lot to say about it. Unlike Josh, I didn't get perked up. It's just because this was the only movie I hadn't seen on this list. I'd seen all the rest of them, back when they all came out, but I never got around to always know. I don't know. It's boring. I don't really even remember it, and I watched it like 4 weeks ago.
Well, I couldn't have 2 dead lasts, so something had to come in right. And it just happened to be this one. And just like what he said, he doesn't even really remember it. I had never seen I Always Know What You Did, and I had never seen the Urban Legends Bloody Mary, so I needed to rewatch some of those. And that was one of my rewatches this past weekend. And it took me 2 days to get through because I kept having to just like take a break and rewind and be like, wait a minute, what is happening? What is this? It was really boring and really just nothing to it. It tried really, really hard to give us something and stick with the whole theme, and then they made it paranormal, and then it was just, I don't know. It could not even keep my attention for 2 days. It was pretty bad.
I gave this movie half a star on Letterboxd, right? This is a movie full of bad choices, right? From the character's choice to make the fishermen their urban legend when they don't live anywhere near the coast. To the prank where the guy jumps off the parking garage and doesn't notice the killer farm equipment, to literally all the choices the actors make, to the choice of the dull cinematography, to the decision, to the fact that they make this a murder mystery that you can't possibly figure out because the killer is the summoned spirit, physical manifestation of Ben Willis, who comes back to kill them because they kept a secret. Like however, the worst choice for this entire movie was for me choosing to watch it.
Okay, so there's our dead last, but what's number 9? Number 9 with 222 points, also very low, is Urban Legends 3 Bloody Mary. I don't think this is any surprise. It was ranked dead last 7 times. I would want to remind everybody that I'll Always Know was ranked dead last 17 times. This was 7 times. That's 24 dead lasts. There's only one person that didn't rank one of these 2 movies as dead last. The best score that this movie got was a 4th place, which it did get one time. One person did rank it in 4th place. On the panel, it was also pretty consistent. Fatima and Sean, you guys both had this as your dead lasts. Steven and I both had it in 9th place. So obviously very low scores.
It just felt like one of those random horror movies you put on when you're on Tubi. Like, it was just so low quality, and I couldn't get over that like fake 60s song that they kept trying to play every time a murder would happen.
See what love can bring.
No. Totally.
I just wanna make you mine.
And it's just so cheesy and just so slow, and the acting, like, people just aren't even trying. It was just one of those, like, bottom of the barrel, like, let's just watch this because there's nothing better to do type movies. There was one cool thing that I noticed though, Josh. There's a scene where one of the kids is in like a hotel room and he's watching some dirty movie like on TV, and it's like cutting in and out, like scratching in and out. And it's actually the romantic scene that the main character is having in Urban Legends Final Cut with her and the and the twin brother. And I like had to rewatch because I was like, wait a minute. And it's so cheesy because it's got like the cheesiest porno music played over the top of it. And it doesn't match the sound at all.
That's
it's
funny.
Like super like kind of like romantic. And then it's got this cheesy porno track. And it's just like, I had to rewind it because I thought it was so ridiculous that they would even choose to do that.
I mean, it's less than basic. Like, it's like negative achievement. Like how, like, I don't know how, I can't believe that this is directed by Mary Lambert. Like, you watch Pet Sematary, the first one, and it's got style. Like, it's not a great movie, but it has style. None of that is present in this movie. And I knew I was in trouble. I even texted Josh right from the title card. I texted Josh and said, "Oh no." And he goes, "Just wait till the spiders." He knew exactly what I was talking about with the title card. And then he said, "You followed up with wait." And then the spiders happened. This is wretched. This is seriously, this isn't the worst movie I've ever seen. The worst movie I've ever seen is called Chain of Command with Michael Jai White and Stone Cold Steve Austin. But this is the second worst movie I've ever seen.
I do think it was rather interesting that both of the third entries of Last Summer and Urban Legends switched to supernatural elements, although it made more sense for them to switch to supernatural with this one, because if you're talking about Urban Legends, it kind of makes a little bit more sense to go supernatural. But then they didn't really even do anything with the whole urban legend aspect, and instead they just said, hey, there's this old movie called Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2. Can we just do that again? And they just did that again. And they decided to try to throw some urban legends in there. But then they don't even really do that. Because burning in a tanning bed, that's not an urban legend. Peeing on an electric fence, that's not an urban legend. Like, none of those are urban legends. You could have done a lot of the cool stories that have been told and done them with a ghost, and that would have been a lot better. But they didn't go that route, and instead they went a route of just making a really, really bad movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst thing ever. It's watchable. I mean, I've seen a lot of bad movies. Okay, I've seen a lot of bad movies. There's a much lower floor there. Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with basically everything everyone said. I don't know that my passion against it is as strong, but it's meh.
Oh, I violently hate this movie.
But let's get to that now as we go to number 8, our number 8 movie, which had a pretty big jump up in number of points. We go from 222 in 9th place to 163 points for number 8, which is Scream 3. This movie was ranked dead last one time, and the best score that it got was 2nd place. On the panel, I ranked it dead last. I did. Fatima, you had it also very low in 8th place, and Sean, middle of the road with 6th place, and Steven, you had it the highest in 4th place. And I'm going to explain why this was my dead last. I hated I Always Know What You Did. I hated Bloody Mary, and I hated this. So how I ended up ranking them was by pedigree. When you had I Always Know What You Did Last Summer, it was the guy's first feature film using actors that were whatever. It was bound to be a bad movie. When you had Urban Legends 3, you had Mary Lambert, who, yes, had some movies under her belt, whereas Scream 3, you had one of the most well-known horror directors, all the money in the world, your literal pick of any talent that you want in Hollywood, anybody that you wanted, everyone wanted to be in a Scream movie. So they had all of those resources, and they could have had anyone in the movie, and they went with Jay and Silent Bob. Like, I shouldn't even be considering which of these two movies is worse. It should obviously be So I Always Know What You Did Last Summer. The fact that I was even thinking about which one I hated worse made me say, all right, Scream 3 has to be, I have to rank it a little bit lower. So there you go. That is why I have that one as my dead last. I know it's not, hopefully it makes a little bit of sense.
You know, ask me what I thought about Scream 3 when I walked out of the theater, and I was absolutely depressed. I was like so unhappy. It was not what I wanted. But now, it's almost 22 years later, and I have nostalgia for it. I have nostalgia for the era, and just that time being part of the fan communities, and it's just the natural cycle of things. But I don't think Scream 3 is that bad. It's it's not the greatest movie in the world. It's certainly not as good as the other Screams. I think it's better than most of the movies on this list. It's still got some good direction from Wes Craven. The script is bad. It was a mess. The Weinsteins, as always, screwing with the film. But yeah, I like Scream 3. It's not the greatest movie ever, but I like it.
It's always kind of known that that's the original Scream is based off of satire and everything that goes on in slasher films. And I think Scream 3 for me is just where they took it too far. It became just too cheesy and too scary movie-esque. Part of the plot that just wasn't tying up. Why was Jamie Kennedy's sister just randomly on set with a video from him? It's like that. Those are the little things that would annoy me. And then why did he take the time to seriously sit down and make this video? It's I know you can't pick apart everything like that because it is a movie, but those are the most ridiculous things to me that ruin movies for me sometimes, because it's the first two I think are pretty good and they hold true to what they're trying to do. But then when they came into Scream 3, they got really lazy with it when they should have just kept the momentum.
I don't like this movie. It's there because there are worse movies. I don't think there's anything of value in this movie. I think Wes Craven is going through the motions. I feel like this is a contractual obligation for him rather than anything else. I don't feel any of his passion or this feels like a job. I don't like that they reset Dewey and Gail's relationship for the third time.
Again.
I hate the cameos in this movie. Jay and Silent Bob, Carrie Fisher. This was those were Nightmare on Elm Street 6 level. I think the characters are the thinnest they've ever been. Way too winky when Jenny McCarthy's talking about how she's only in 2 scenes and she gets killed in the second scene and then she gets killed in the scene. Stuff like that. The only 2 things I like about it, I think the opening's solid with Cotton Weary's death and the whole thing going on there with his girlfriend at the house, and Parker Posey. Those are the only 2 things I can recommend this movie for. It's by far the worst Scream movie. It's just not the worst movie on this list for me. So that's why it's number 6.
How did we all get through talking about this movie and no one mentioned the garbage dream sequence?
Sid, come here. Mother needs to talk.
No.
Or Courtney Cox's bangs.
Well, I'm not gonna rag it. Let me.
Because you
I
have
actually.
to block it out.
It's funny because the very first thing in my notes, it just says Courtney Cox's bangs. It's the first thing it said.
As a woman, I had to mentally block that out.
As a guy, I'm with you.
It's so traumatizing. It's what are those?
All right, well, that takes us now down to our number 7 film. In 7th place with 148 points is Urban Legends 2 Final Cut, which the worst score that it did get 1 9th place ranking, and the best score that it got was a 1st place ranking. Somebody gave it their 1st place spot. On the panel here, Sean, you had this pretty low with 8th place. Stephen and Fatima, you had it in 6th place, and I had it the highest. I had it in 5th place.
There's a reason why slasher films started going out of fashion in the 2000s, and this is one of them. This movie's awful. It's terrible. I didn't when you first told me about this, I hadn't seen I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer or Bloody Mary. I was convinced this was going to be dead last. And then, so for those movies to be worse than this, impressive. I don't think there's anything good about this movie. Not a single thing.
I guess I will slightly defend, because I gave it a 5th place, so obviously I had a little bit more appreciation for it, but I don't really think this is a good movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I did think that it it realized some of the faults of the first movie, and it kind of fixed them a little bit. It still didn't take advantage of the whole urban legend thing in a really decent way. I don't think any of the urban legend movies really did a good job of capitalizing on that. But I did like the film school setting. I thought that it allowed it to be meta in a different way that Scream was. It had a different take on that, which I thought was a little bit more interesting. And I liked the fencing mask look. I thought the fencing mask look was definitely more interesting than a dude in a parka.
Dude?
Or I guess, yeah. Well, yeah, let's face it, it was a dude in a parka. No last shot. Let's face it. Although I will say that damn that ending for promising the team up that I didn't really ask for in the first place, and didn't realize that I actually wanted, but then kind of did, and then they just never gave it to me. Come on, I want to see crazy Rebecca Gayheart with the guy from that movie teaming up and being murderous.
I'm actually a fan of it. Again, go back to like 2000 when I was like obsessed with filmmaking and just watching any movie about filmmaking, and it was like, you know, right up my alley, but, you know, being a film school thing. But now I actually get all the filmmaking references. Like the movie quotes Truffaut. That's nuts. Like why would you put references to Truffaut in a slasher film? Like what are the slasher films? The slasher fans like, oh yeah, they quoted Truffaut. That's so cool. But yeah, I like it. It's a fun movie, you know. It's not amazing. It's not, you know, it's not notable, I guess, but I like it.
I thought it was still pretty fun. I do like a lot about this movie. I thought that the storyline of it being in a film school was pretty cool. I liked the actors that they had in it. I'm a sucker for Joey Lawrence, so I thought that was pretty fun to like see him in something and still do it, getting work. And I liked the twist. I liked the way the ending kind of ended up well for the main character. And I just thought it was a pretty fun movie. I mean, it's not a great movie, but I definitely enjoyed it for what it was.
All right. So now we go down to our number 6 movie with 141 points, which was it and Urban Legend 2 were fairly close, but with 141 points, it's I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. The worst score that it got was 9th place, and the best score that it got was 1st place. Somebody gave it their number 1 spot. On the panel, Stephen, you had it the lowest with 7th place. Fatima and Sean also pretty low with 5th place. And I had it in 2nd. Which I will now defend. I think anyone that watches any of the channel and watches the shows know that I happen to really have a special place in my heart for movies that are just so bad that they cross over into being hilarious. And this is one of those movies. Everything about this movie is wrong. Everything is silly. The whole island scenario. I love the fact that Ben Willis's son took the time to enlist in the college and then became one of Julie's close group of friends specifically just to get revenge. I mean, it was so needlessly elaborate that I love it. The whole talk radio show question thing. I mean, to get them to a resort to murder it was so insanely over the top that I just adore it. I also really quick want to point out, because I think he would be upset if I do not mention this, but Mike from Intoxicated Masculinity wants to point out that Nancy has no clue how to make a Dark and Stormy. But it just, because it's so dumb and so terrible, it swings back into the I want to watch it every time it's on category.
I feel the exact same way about the movie as you do. I just like all the other movies more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. I think it is a stupid but very fun movie. And I enjoy watching it. I don't even have anything to say because I agree with everything you said.
I agree with you that this is so dumb and stupid, except it doesn't swing back around for me. It just stays in dumb and stupid for me. And I hate it. The only thing I respect about this movie is the fact that they were like, let's film the movie in Bahamas and then write the script around that. Every decision made in this movie was based around that one choice to be like, let's make a movie in the Bahamas. Once they settled on the location, everything else was just like, they didn't try hard. They didn't try at all. Not even hard. They didn't even try a little bit. They didn't even try soft. They tried not at all to make a good movie once they had a location.
it's just really nostalgic for me. This is why it gets a little bit higher for me, because this is another one of those nostalgic movies that I remember watching and being like, oh my God, I love Jennifer Love Hewitt and Brandy, you know. And I think that that's why they didn't have to try, is because they still had Freddie Prinze, Jennifer Love Hewitt, they threw in Jack Black, they have Brandy. They didn't have to. They were just selling it based off of those people, and they knew it was going to work, and they knew it was going to be a fun summer movie, or whenever it came out. I don't know exactly, but you know, that I can go back to thinking about being in middle school and like this coming out and being like, oh my God, I can't wait to do this movie. They're still alive. They're still in it. And, you know, and I think that that's why they didn't really have to try, because they had those big names. Mm-hmm. Looking back on it and like rewatching it, it's like, oh, that's kind of fun.
Going into the top half of the list now, we go on to number 5. Number 5 had 124 points, and it is, up until now, the most recent entry, Scream 4. The worst score that it got was 9th place, and the best score that it got was 2nd place, which it got 5 times. On the panel, me and Fatima had it the lowest. We both had it in 7th place. Sean, you had it fairly high in 4th place, but Steven, you had this the highest with 2nd place, and I know that you actually really enjoy this one.
Yeah, I love Scream 4. I didn't when it came out. When it came out, I was just kind of like, okay, that was fine. I didn't really think much about it. You know, a decade had passed. My love of Scream had kind of faded, you know, in terms of the fandom and all that, you know. So I was just kind of like, okay, well, I guess it's better than Scream 3. But then a few years ago, when I rewatched it, I was like, wait, no, this is actually really good. There's actually some really interesting stuff going on here. And it's actually kind of a film that's aged into itself, like, because all the remakes and social media fame, you know, craving stuff has actually gotten worse. And I feel like it's the Scream film that most remembers what was good about the first one. I have some issues with it. You know, there's the stupid Anthony Anderson stuff, some other moments throughout the film that I really don't like. And it's definitely nowhere on the caliber of the original Scream film. Let's be clear, nowhere near that. But I love Scream 4 a whole lot.
I think my biggest issue is that I really wanted more from it. They brought it back after like 10 years. And then it was just kind of the same movie again. It was done very well. The two biggest beefs I had with it is, does every single one of these movies have to have romantic tension between Dewey and Gale? Is that, like, when you get to the 4th movie and they sit down to write it and they're just like, what do we do with Dewey and Gale? Is really the only thing that they can throw out there to be like, well, let's have them have relationship troubles again. The thing that I'm really sick of, they started in the 2nd movie, they slammed home in the 3rd movie, and did it again here, is you bring back the 3 main characters and you say, oh no, any one of them could die, no one is safe this time, we could kill off one of the main characters. And then they don't. They do it every time. They're doing it again for Scream 5, and you know, if all 3 of them survive again for Scream 5, it's just going to be like, come on now, like quit promising that you're going to kill off the leads if you're not going to kill off the leads, damn it.
We alluded to it first with Anthony Anderson. Why they had him get out of the car after he was stabbed in the head and then do a bad joke. Like, why? The movie wasn't even close to that kind of movie until that moment. But there are things I genuinely like about this movie. I like the mystery this time around. I thought it was more fun. Kirby is a great character. She's probably the best character this franchise has introduced since the original. I think she was great, and like I legitimately cared about her. So, which is something I really wish they would get back to, is making me care about the people when they're in jeopardy, so that it actually feels something. I love the scene where Emma Roberts is just beating the shit out of each other to sell her like alibi. And I think she's great. Once she's revealed to be the killer, once I'm over the fact that she's only 5'2" in real life, and then she just goes into like why she's doing it and how she acts, like from that point on, I think is really good and really fun.
Things that I didn't like about Scream 4 is something that's in pretty much all of these movies. The first one does it the best. Everything else, everyone has to be a cinephile. It's like the 2 cops sitting in the cop car are cinephiles. These like young kids, it's like, she's supposed to be how old in the years like 2000 something, and she's got an American Werewolf in London poster in her bedroom, and it's just like, does she? And then like Kirby has a Tremors poster in her bedroom. It's just like, would she? Not that, I mean, they could have awesome parents that showed them really good movies, but I feel like, you know, it just goes a little too far with dragging that type of, you know, part of the storyline out. But what I did like about it is I did like that Emma Roberts ended up being the killer at the end. Like, it was a huge surprise to me. I feel like I usually have a pretty good time figuring things out in a movie, like, oh, I think it's this person, I think it's that person. It was a curveball for me. I didn't figure that out. I had no idea that it was going to be her, and I thought that was a pretty fun reveal.
Going on to our number 4 movie. And what's interesting here is, if you're keeping track, there's still at least one movie from each franchise left. And at number 4 with 105 points is the original Urban Legend. And the worst score that it got was 8th place, which 2 people ranked it in 8th. And the best score that it got was 1st place, which 1 person gave it their 1st place nod. On this panel, Stephen, you had it ranked the lowest in 8th place, which was its worst score. Sean, you had it a little higher in 7th place. I had it somewhat higher in 4th place. And Fatima, you had this the highest out of us in 2nd place. Stephen, you've got this the lowest. You've got this in 8th place.
Yeah, you know, I remember liking Urban Legend, but on this rewatch, I was like, man, this movie isn't good. It's really not a very good movie. If that movie came out today, I think people would absolutely trash that movie if it came out today. I think the only thing keeping that movie afloat is nostalgia. I don't know that I quite hate it, but I don't think it's a good movie. And I couldn't really justify placing it above any of the movies that I kind of actually like. But it's certainly like way above like Bloody Mary and I'll Always Know. There's a gap in quality there, not numerically represented.
I hadn't watched this since it came out, but I remember not thinking it was bad. But watching it this time, I was like, wow, this is really dull. There's way too many fake out jump scares. Not a single character comes off as a real person or likable. Alicia Witt is an awful lead final girl. She shows the range of like a piece of thread. The killer reveal obviously is ridiculous. At that time, she was just a Noxzema girl, right? So I had never seen her, like, besides being in like a cameo in Scream 2, like I had never really seen her act. And I was like, okay, she at least she can dial it up. But yeah, this shows the worst part of Scream's legacy. It's just not good. It's just a very dull, below average movie.
I guess I'm going to slightly defend it, but not really, because I have it in 4th place, so it's somewhat higher. But it's just because the movies that I have below it I dislike more, because I will say that I pretty much agree that this is about as standard of a movie as I can imagine. It's fine. There's not much about it that I dislike. It's just really kind of mediocre, but it had a few things that I like. I mean, first of all, when it came out, I was really into the concept of urban legends. I had a couple of books on urban legends, and I was very fascinated by it. So this whole concept of the movie was something that I was totally on board for. Although I do wish that they had taken advantage of some of the urban legends that were a little bit more likely to be recreated in real life than some of the ones that they actually did. But it had some fun things. Obviously, you got Freddy and you got Jamie Lloyd in there, which was kind of some fun little genre throwbacks, which is pretty cool. But this is the movie where people should have realized that the quality level of Tara Reid, and like, because her career was still actually fairly solid after this, but people should have seen this one and been like, oh, okay, let's not.
She's awful.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's all right.
Rebecca Gayheart like stole it for me. I liked that she was the bad guy in the end, and she did such a good job at just being crazy and manic, and I thought she made the movie good for me and make it a classic for me for that time and what they were trying to do. Like, I got it. I liked the concept of it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was different. It kind of strayed away a little bit from Scream. but not by much. I think it was because of that ending. The ending was so different to me, and that's what kind of hooked me into giving it a higher ranking.
Okay, so that'll take us into our top 3 now, and at number 3, with 93 points, getting down to the wire here, is Scream 2. The worst score that it got was 7th place, and the best score that it got was 1st place. It got 1 first place nod. And on the panel, I had it the lowest with 6th place. Fatima, you had it a little higher in 4th place. Steven in 3rd. And Sean, you had it the highest in 2nd place. Obviously, the most appreciation for Scream 2 here.
I just think it's a ton of fun. The Dewey-Gale relationship hadn't gotten stale yet. I love the fact that they killed my favorite character. Like, usually a lot of people get turned off by that, but I thought it was great. And it was halfway through the movie too. So I was like, oh my God, it just instantly raises the stakes. The suspense is really good in this movie. There's multiple really good suspense sequences. The car scene when they're crawling through the other side, like, I think that's like white knuckle suspense. The boyfriend character played by Jerry O'Connell, they kind of overcorrected what they did with Skeet Ulrich to the point where he was kind of bland. I think it's a really, really good sequel. I know this is going to kill people and they're going to get mad, but I like it a little bit more than Scream, and a lot of it's because of the suspense and because they kill off Randy. Objectively, it's not better than Scream, but I enjoy it more for the highs that it has.
I will both agree and disagree, because I do love the Randy scene and the fact that they had the guts to kill him, and that's what I kind of wish they had carried forth with the rest of the series with. But it was just one of these scenes in this movie that I thought made so little sense that I couldn't get past it, and that scene, to me, is done so dumbly. Because you've got the character that knows there's a killer watching them, and they're in the middle of this huge, wide open space. And the one place that he happens to go is the one van that the killer happens to be in, and he happens to have his back to
Stop.
it. And it's just, it's so ridiculous.
Stop.
The car scene is actually really tense until they get out of the car. And then the killer is unconscious in front of them. There's a gun on the car hood. There's rebar. There's all kinds of stuff around. And they just say, let's run. Just kill the guy. He's right there. It did do a good job of continuing the feeling of the first one, though. I'll give it that. But I'm not as on board with this one as other people are. It just has too many ridiculous plot contrivances.
Yeah, I thought it was a great sequel. I thought it did what it needed to do without completely tarnishing Scream's name for me. It was really fun, and I loved Timothy Olyphant's character the most. Like, I thought he was cool. I liked him as the killer at the end. And Jackie is kind of cheesy to me because I always see her as Aunt Jackie as well. But I just thought it was a good, clean sequel to Scream. It didn't ruin anything for me, and it made me excited for more until Scream 3 came around, and then I was like, oh, okay, they're not going to keep going with a good job with these movies. So it was a fun sequel. It was a good time, and I just enjoyed it for what it was, a sequel.
The script is a mess. I think it's actually the messiest script. I mean, because they started shooting without an incomplete script. The Weinsteins, forced them to go in production. So Kevin Williamson was writing fast and furious, and there are scenes in the movie that are written by Wes Craven because they didn't have the script for them. So the night before, Wes Craven was, having to write scenes. But at the same time, there are lots of really strong scenes. I love the Randy scene. Like, the way that scene made me feel can never be replaced. Nothing in any other horror movie will ever replace the way I felt on opening night watching that. The complete devastation and shock. I don't care how stupid it is. It just, like, the way it affected me, it matters more than anything else. I'm not the biggest fan of the killers in that one. I think Mickey is too obvious, and the Billy's mom thing is a bit silly, and it's kind of cheap having a killer who you couldn't possibly guess, because she's just a reporter lady who's standing around. But I still love Scream 2. I have so much nostalgia for it. I love the soundtrack. I love the stupid Partridge Family and the cafeteria scene. I love that film. It's a mess, but I love it.
All right, we go on now to our number 2 movie. There's only 2 left. And with 91 points, only 2 points ahead of Scream 2, is I Know What You Did Last Summer. The worst score that it got was 7th place, which it got twice. And the best score that it got was 1st place, which it got 3 times. 3 people ranked it in 1st. And on the panel, Stephen, you had it the lowest with 5th place. I had it fairly high up there in 3rd place. And Fatima and Sean, you are 2 of the 3 number 1 spots. So you both love this very, very much. Fatima, what do you love about I Know What You Did Last Summer?
Well, first of all, it opens with typo negative, so that sells it for me immediately. It's got a great opening soundtrack that I love that. And I think it's just a very solid, scary movie. It builds a lot of the tension. It gives you anxiety. The acting is really done well. It's 4 of the most popular actors at the time, like for that type of scene. And I just thought it was so much fun. And it does what it's supposed to do. And I love that it's set in like this wharf type setting, like with fishermen. It's just different. And I thought that was really, really awesome. And I love Sarah Michelle Gellar's character. I thought we got some really good acting from her in that movie. And yeah, it's just a really good time. It's very nostalgic for me. I love it.
But yeah, I don't really have anything bad to say about it. Like it's frankly the best post-Scream slasher. Frankly, I think it's the only good post-Scream slasher, if I'm being honest. I think it's solid. It's got, a good Kevin Williamson script, probably his best Scream 1 script. I like the music. I love the cast. I wish Sarah Michelle Gellar was the lead, but I still love Jennifer Love Hewitt. Yeah, I love I Know What You Did Last Summer.
You know what's funny, because that's when it comes to this movie, that's the thing I often hear the most, is that everyone wanted Sarah Michelle Gellar to survive. That like her character should have survived, and she should have been the hero. And it's funny because I agree with that, and then I also don't. The part I'll agree with is that her character was more interesting than Jennifer Love Hewitt's, and Jennifer Love Hewitt's character was pretty bland and not that interesting. But I do think it was the right move to kill her, because I like when they kill characters that you don't want to see die. That makes it more impactful for the movie to me, and it's more interesting. I did think there was a nice amount of character work in the movie. It's not a deep movie, but it just did a good job of fleshing out the leads. But the biggest problem is that the leads aren't really that likable, because the central conceit of the film is that they are basically just trying to get out of trouble for committing a crime that honestly they wouldn't have even gotten in trouble for if they had just owned up to it. What trouble would they have gotten into? They were driving down the road and a guy walked out in the middle of the road and they hit him. The only reason that it turns out that the teens are not the villains of the movie is that the guy that they ran over just so happened to be a killer himself. But there you go. I mean, it's a blast. I mean, this is a great movie. It's enjoyable. It's fun. It is a classic slasher with a cool story. You can't not like this movie. It's just really enjoyable.
So the reason why I have it number 1, see, that as much as I like Scream, I like that this was more straightforward and more of a traditional slasher movie, and not. There's a couple of meta jokes, but they're not the thrust of the movie. It's not the reason for the movie's being. To me, the chase scene from the car to when she dies is a masterclass in horror / suspense. Like that sequence alone, that 10 minutes of movie is worthy of a 5-star review to me. I just can't say enough good things. I genuinely think this is so great, which leads into why I Still Know What You Did Last Summer so much, because that ending is so killer when it says "I still know" and he jumps out, and I was just like, I was so freaking stoked for a sequel for that movie. I was like so hyped. I went to see it opening day, and then "I Still Know What You Did Last Summer" is the movie that came out, and it was such a letdown for me because, again, Scream 2 had was so almost maintained the bar that for "I Still Know" to drop so far below this one. The directing is great in this, I think, across the board. It's just everything. I just feel like was such a high bar, and that they just didn't even come close to meeting. That's why I hate "I Still Know What You Did Last Summer" so much. It's because it just let me down from this one so much, and that killer ending.
Well, that takes us to our number one movie.
Shocking no one.
Yeah, yes. This was, I think, to no one's surprise. For me, it was a question of how low the score will be. And at 47 points is, of course, Wes Craven's Scream. The original one. It's the worst score that it got. It did get a single 8th place spot. The best score that it got was first place, which it got 18 times. 18 out of 25 people ranked it as their number one spot. On the panel, Fatima and Sean, you guys both had it in 3rd place, and Stephen and I had it in 1st.
I don't think people realize the ghetto that horror was in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
You had Rumpelstiltskin, crap like that was what horror was.
Hey, I like Stiltskin. How dare you? Mark Jones.
I was so excited that they got it. God, you watch all these horror movies and they live in a world where horror movies don't exist. But this whole movie did that. And I thought it was so refreshing. The opening scene is incredible, which brings me to why it's not higher. Is because the movie peaks super early. I don't think anything that comes after is nearly as good. I think it's a really good movie. I think it maintains its quality after that. It plateaus pretty not too far below the top, but it never hits those highs again. As enjoyable as it is, I want to be on the edge of my seat when I see a good horror movie, and it wasn't that all the way through.
It is a love letter to the genre, regardless of the satire and the comedy. It's if we didn't have Scream, we wouldn't have this list of movies that we watched for the show today. And it's done so well. And, this coming back to where everyone's a cinephile in this movie and the way they kind of have Tarantino type dialogue. It was great. I always wish, and people are going to get mad at me for this, but I always wish that when she smashes the TV on Stu, when she smashes the TV on him and she says "in your dreams," I kind of wish they had been watching Nightmare on Elm Street the whole time instead of Halloween, even though I get why they're watching Halloween because it's important, but it would have been a better nod to that with her infamous moment of killing him and the quote that she has.
I was, a 14-year-old horror fan when it came out. It came out 2 days after my 14th birthday. I didn't see it until it came out on VHS because I didn't have anyone to take me to see it at the time. It was the first time I kind of felt seen, like that feeling like you're seen. This movie represents me and represents the things that I love and the things that I've been thinking while watching horror movies. I think Kevin Williamson doesn't get enough credit for Scream. I think people tend to it's Wes Craven's film, but Wes Craven didn't write it. Kevin Williamson wrote it. And I think that script is great. There's some little things that could have been better, but it's a really, really sharp script. The cast is great. And Wes Craven's direction, I think, is, in my opinion, the strongest of his career. Like Sean said, that opening scene is just perfect. Every single bit of that is perfect. It both saved and also kind of destroyed horror because it turned horror into this kind of, this thing where you get, these young popular actors from TV shows. And I think it taught studios that you can not just make big money out of horror, but you can make really big money. For better or worse, it, kind of changed everything for good.
I do not care for Scream sequels, but I sure as hell do love Scream. It is a pitch-perfect slasher flick while also serving as a sort of a satire of slasher flicks. It does them both really well. And as opposed to the movies that followed it, it balanced them. It knew enough to be the satire and the real deal at the same time. There's no way to explain how jarring that the opening scene, seeing Drew Barrymore get killed off when she was promoted as the lead, you can't explain how unexpected that was. They did such a good job of keeping that under wraps. So when you went to go see it at the theater, which I did, and you're watching it happen, you're like, wait, what? And also, it's one of the few times with these slasher movies where they have a mystery and it's a murder mystery that totally works, where you think you have it pegged down, but then they kind of lead you down another way, and then when they had that reveal, oh my gosh, is that reveal satisfying? There's just not much that's to me that's really bad about it. It's such a great, enjoyable flick that I think deserves this #1 spot.
You like scary movies?
So there you have it, 10 movies, 3 different franchises, and let's take a look at this ranking, because I'm pretty okay with this. This is a pretty good roster. I'm not mad about where any of these movies landed. A couple of them I don't necessarily agree with. That don't match my personal rankings, but I certainly don't disagree with where anything showed up. I'm pretty happy with that. And let's add it to our wall of shame. I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer joins the rankings of the Dead Last movies, and we'll see if it can go on to win the Dead Last. But yeah, so there it is. Let me know down below what you guys think of this ranking, or let me know where you would have placed these movies. Let us know what your rankings are. Oh, what's that? Oh, you're noticing my t-shirt? Oh, that's nice. You want your own Dead Last t-shirt? You can go get one of those. It's on the Teespring store. You can click on it. I think it's down below, somewhere down here. Click on the link and get some merch. And also, please like the video, subscribe to this channel, and share it out to your friends if you feel so inclined. Please also check out my Patreon page. Patrons get to vote every single month on Dead Last rankings. We come up with a list about 2 months in advance, and everyone just sends in their rankings, so you can be a part of it. These guys here are my patrons, and they are pretty awesome. I thank them every single month and every single moment for helping keep this channel going. But I also want to thank my panel. Thank you guys very much for coming and talking about these movies. I know that they were near and dear to your hearts in particular, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun.
I'll always know what was dead last.
That's true. That's true.
I won't. I'm very mad about that.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much, and we'll see you very shortly for another great video. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye. And with 91 points, only 2 points ahead of Scream 2, is I Know What You Did Last. Oh my gosh.
That's how you really feel about the movie, right, Josh?
Seriously.
That's not the title I saw it under.
I know. That's part 3.